Good morning, it's Al Emery here with Momentum Software Solutions, and welcome to today's webinar. We're talking about MYOB Advanced today. So we will start with an overview of the various software options available from MYOB. MYOB have a range of small business products, and they also have a range of larger business or ERP solutions. Some are cloud-based and some are on-premise. So the ERP solutions that Momentum is a reseller of are MYOB EXO and MYOB Advanced. MYOB EXO is an on-premise solution, requires a server. MYOB Advanced is a pure cloud solution. MYOB Advanced will run in any browser, so Windows, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, and also has a mobile app that will run on Android and iOS devices. So it's a true cloud system. Some systems in the market are advertised as cloud, but are really an on-premise solution that's being hosted. MYOB Advanced was developed from the ground up as a purely cloud solution. The licensing is monthly, software as a service, so there's a monthly fee for the different licenses that are available, and the licensing can be changed up or down to add or reduce users as you like. MYOB Advanced comes in 3 editions. This is a chart of the editions and the features available at a very high level. So the reason there's 3 editions is businesses that tend to outgrow small business software have less complex needs than businesses that are maybe a $100 million business, so for example. So a medium-sized business that's outgrown MYOB AccountWrite or Xero or Quicken would use the standard edition most likely. As they grow or become more complex, then they may need the Plus edition, and larger businesses again use the Enterprise edition. So they're all exactly the same software, just with more features enabled and different price points. Apart from standard features, there's a quite rapidly growing ecosystem of add-ons to cover a number of other areas. We have experience with a number of them, especially the manufacturing and point-of-sale modules, as well as barcode scanning. So MYOB Advanced is a good fit for a range of different industry types: wholesale distribution, manufacturing, not-for-profit, professional services, retail, and mining services, and a bunch of others as well, but those are the main ones. And the implementation of MYOB Advanced is done by a business partner reseller like us. We're based on the Sunshine Coast as well as Brisbane, and we have customers throughout mostly Queensland, but also New South Wales, Victoria, and some overseas as well. So implementing the software is done in consultation with us. We have a number of small and quite large customers. Some of those names you might know: St John Ambulance, quite a large national organisation, and ATP Science, who were recently advertised by MYOB with a case study for their implementation of Advanced with the manufacturing module. Implementing the system, we have a very clear methodology that we go through, which includes management of the project, scoping the business processes for the customer in enough detail so that we can configure the system to suit. We build a prototype or testing system with the customer's data in it, and things progress from there. So that gives the customer the ability to access the system quite early on in the project and get familiar with it. as well as Okay, I'm just going to pause for one moment. I've had a question about audio. The audio we're using today is the dial-in number. So if you call in on the 1-800 number, 1-800-153-721, you should be seeing that there on the screen, Donna. Then you can enter that PIN code. So I'll just pop this on the side of the screen so you can see that, and I'll carry on. So there's a prototyping process happening, and as the system is refined, the key people at the customer are doing testing and making sure that everything's working the way they want it. And then we do a final cutover of data with a reconciliation back to your current system, and then you go live. We work through our project plan, and this covers those key areas in a linear format. So we use an online project management tool. Once you're live on your new ERP system, then there's usually two things. There's a settling in period where you might be engaging with our support desk quite regularly for a little bit. Then there's also a continuous improvement program where you want to set new projects, and those could be relating to reports, integration, implementing additional features that weren't part of the initial scope. So those can be done at any time. Okay, so I'll come back to the PowerPoint. The main intention today is to show you the application. So I have here my Google Chrome browser. You basically have a URL with your company name in it and a username and password for the different people in your business. When a user first logs into MYOB Advanced, they'll be presented with a number of dashboards, and those dashboards can be tailored to their particular role or even to their particular login. Okay, so there are some templated role-based dashboards, but all of those dashboards can be customized, and it's also quite easy to create new dashboards. So navigating around MYOB Advanced is quite simple. You have tabs and then a ribbon with the key functional areas. So we have organization, and under that communication. That's predominantly email integration as well as managing tasks and appointments and approvals. Customer management, and that particularly relates to CRM. Projects, so there's a very comprehensive projects module in the application, which I'll touch on in more detail. Time and expenses. Employees can submit expense claims on their mobile phone with receipts attached, and those can be submitted for approval, processed as receipts, and approved as a claim to be reimbursed back to the employee. There's also the ability to enter time sheets as either time cards or activity-based time cards. There's an organizational structure, and I'll come back to that shortly. Then under finance, you have the basics from a financial accounting perspective: general ledger, cash, accounts payable, receivable, a very comprehensive fixed asset register, deferred revenue, taxes, currencies. Under distribution, there is a very extensive inventory module. sales orders, purchase orders, and requisitions. People is effectively payroll, and over time that will be expanded out to include some HR capabilities as well. At the moment, it's payroll only. I'm going to skip over the manufacturing because that's actually an add-on. If there's any interest in the manufacturing, we can share that separately. And then there's a lot of aspects relating to configuration and system. So I want to touch on some key things relating to how Advanced can be used for larger, more complex businesses. So one thing that commonly is a factor is a lot of businesses actually consist of multiple entities, and in many cases they're having their current system having a separate file or a separate database for each entity. In MYOB Advanced, you can run multiple entities in a single database, and there's a lot of benefits of doing that. How it's done is using the feature called branches. So branches, each branch can have their own legal entity with its own ABN, country, and currency. And you could, for example, run 2 or 5 or 10 separate companies all in a single database. And some of the advantages of doing that is some obvious ones. Firstly, not having to log in and out of different company files to process transactions and do reports. But another one is the ability to share data. So you could have a single chart of accounts that all of those companies share. They could have their own specific accounts for things like bank accounts, of course. That way, instead of trying to maintain multiple charts of accounts, you maintain one. And it also means that you have consolidation of those companies out of the box. Each company can have its own address details, so they could be physically separate addresses. They can have specific accounts that certain transaction types post to, and obviously things like their own logo and their own employees. So that's a very powerful feature in Advanced that a lot of our systems don't have, so the ability to run multiple entities in a single database. You don't have to do that. You actually have the choice of having each entity in a separate database, and in that case, if you're logged into, you can still have a single login, and your different companies that you access would appear in a drop-down list. So branches can alternatively be used for branches within one company, such as different state offices. In addition to that, a business can create their own organizational structure. And what that does is enable you to create a hierarchy that drives a lot of the workflow. So this is just an example where we've got company, department, and then teams within department. You can then assign different employees to different teams. What that will enable you to do is have a lot of the workflow, particularly relating to approvals and also assignment of things, driven from that company tree. So a lot of workflow and approval features are available in Advanced that just don't exist in most small business applications. So let's just look at 2 examples. One is purchase order approval, or let's say project approval. Sorry, I'll use a purchase approval. So a purchase approval can have certain rules and attributes associated with it, and it enables you to set up an automated hierarchy of approvals where if a purchase order value or a certain attribute on a purchase order was true, then you can decide who does that get escalated to in your purchase order approval process. So in this case, we're saying it's over $1,000 and it's not on hold, then assign it to Michael Andrews. Otherwise, it would go to the admin person. So the workflow or the approval hierarchy can be quite simple, or it can be quite complex, designed to handle you know, a large multi-department, multi-division organization. It also handles things like assignment. An assignment means, let's say, for example, when a new lead or sales opportunity comes in, who should action that lead? And you can determine that as a part of the workflow. And it might be, for example, you have different classes of leads depending on the product or that the person is inquiring about, or the state that the potential customer is in. And then that lead would automatically be assigned to the right person. So those are examples of two things that are often completely manual in smaller organizations, and certainly in small business applications that can be automated. And all of that is accompanied by emails and workflow. So we have, for example, automation. And under the automation options, we can send notifications out and we can circulate emails. So anything that somebody needs to approve or anything that somebody has been assigned, they can receive a notification about, and they also might well see them on their dashboard when they first log in. So this is an example of bills to be approved dashboard, and you can drill straight to the transaction that needs approving. Another key area from a financial perspective is the ability to manage different ledgers. Okay, so transactions post to an actuals ledger. You can have as many budgets and forecasts as you like using the budget ledger, and if need be, you can use reporting and statistical ledgers. They're usually only needed if consolidated reporting is needed and there's part-owned entities or foreign-owned entities, or you're bringing across data from an external database. If you had multiple entities running in one database in advance, then you would really just need an actuals and budget ledger. The accounting framework in terms of your chart of accounts can be brought across from your current system with the same numbers that you currently have, or you can create a new numbering sequence. If you're familiar with MYOB AccountWrite, a key difference is that AccountWrite has a feature called header accounts, which are used to group accounts that are similar from a reporting perspective, and MYOB Advanced uses account classes for that. Another very powerful feature from a budgeting reporting perspective is sub-accounts. And by sub-accounts, you could, I guess, think of that as reporting or budgeting dimensions that you might want in your business. So over and above what we talked about with branches, which could be different state offices or different companies, you can have product or service types, geographical regions, divisions within your business, all set up in a sub-account structure. So you can have multiple segments to a sub-account, and in doing that, you can then produce budgets and reports at any level of the sub-account structure. Okay, so this is the budget, I guess, inquiry screen. You can see the natural or main account and a budget figure for each month or financial period, but that can be broken down into each individual sub-account that exists. Most businesses, I guess, prepare the budget in Excel, and you can easily import it back in. If you're working on the screen, you can compare it live to prior financial year data or another budget. So very powerful from a setting up the right structure for a more complex business and being able to budget and report at that level. The financial statements are all able to be configured by the customer, and they include various versions of profit and loss, of course, as well as balance sheets, budget comparisons, and a statement of cash flows. So this is an example where if we had different legal entities for the different states, then they can be, would effectively be a consolidated P&L. All of these reports are drillable, so whether you're drilling into a particular value for a particular branch or a total, you can drill into the details of the transactions in that account and then drill down to sub-account level if need be. Okay, a key area that a lot of small business packages don't have and people use separate systems for add-ons is CRM. So Advanced has a completely integrated CRM. It enables a salesperson to manage prospects as well as customers in a single database. If they're looking at customers, and depending on their access rights, then they can easily see basic information about that customer, all the history of notes, meetings, emails that have been sent to or from that customer, maintain different contact people, delivery settings, pricing structure that they're associated with, and I'll touch on that in more detail, as well as with relationships with other businesses or contacts in the database, and then I guess a history of all the current and previous sales opportunities, customer service cases, service contracts, sales orders, marketing campaigns, and marketing lists. So pretty much all the tools that a salesperson needs to be able to manage a sales process in various different ways. So commonly what happens is a very new inquiry would come in probably as a lead. So a lead is a business or person that you've not traded with before, but might become a customer. If it's an active sales opportunity that might involve a quote or turn into some business, then that's usually referred to as an opportunity. An opportunity allows you to track all the touch points with that prospect or customer from start to finish until such time as a converted sale occurs. So you have different statuses, different stages, and different probabilities of success depending on the stage. These are all tailorable for yourself. You can also track where did each potential sale come from, and you can track different opportunity types using a feature called opportunity classes. A different opportunity class can cause things to happen like different questions or attributes that need to be completed on an opportunity. As we saw before, all of the activities, which can be notes, emails, conversations you've had in prosecuting this opportunity, are recorded. If the opportunity is relating to quoting or pricing on products or services, then you have the Products tab to maintain all of that. And if the potential customer then decides to go ahead by sending you a purchase order, signing your credit agreement, or whatever the process is, then you can convert that from an opportunity to an account and a sales order. So all of that can be driven with an approval process. So for example, creating a new customer or debtor account might require somebody to approve it, and the same with a sales order or sales quote. Other things that can be done with your CRM is using the database to manage marketing lists and marketing campaigns. So a marketing list can be manually maintained, or it can be a dynamic list using a query in the database. So for example, all contacts who have purchased in the last 12 months, or all customers in a particular geographical area. So for example, the Central Queensland list. Once you've created that list, then you can use a marketing campaign to track, send mass emails and track the results of the particular campaign. So whether it's an outbound calling campaign to get new orders or an awareness campaign, you can track things like expected revenue. You can have a planned budget, track actual cost, and then you can track leads generated, leads converted, responses, opportunities, and what's been won. So I'll move on to distribution next. And in particular, we'll talk about some of the inventory features that are usually not available in smaller systems. So one is the ability to manage multiple warehouses, so you can have unlimited warehouses, and a lot of different rules and features and attributes associated with a warehouse. Each warehouse can be set up with as many bin or bay locations as you like. You can have the same product in multiple locations in the same warehouse if you need be, so you might have a bulk location and a picking location. Any individual location in a warehouse can have attributes to allow or not allow certain transactions to occur. So you might have a faulty returns location, and you could say sales not allowed, but receipts are allowed, and transfers are allowed, which would allow you to receive faulty stock back and then either dispose of it or transfer it to another location. But it would prevent your salespeople from accidentally trying to process a sale in that location. So just a small thing, but it can make a big difference to people's workflow and inventory accuracy. You are also able to build your own product hierarchy of sales categories, and these can be multiple level categories. So you can create up to or more than 5 sub-levels within any product hierarchy. So if you're in a business that has a large SKU count or a lot of items, then categorizing those items and subcategorizing them can give you better search capability and better reporting on sales and margin at category, subcategory level. In addition to that, you have item classes. And item classes give you the ability to set different default attributes for particular products. A couple of key ones is whether particular types of items are lot or serial tracked. So Advanced supports various options in terms of tracking serial numbers, lot numbers, either of which can be with or without expiry dates, and different methods of tracking. So an item could be fully tracked, which means the system will record and follow its lot or serial number when it's received in or purchased, transferred around, and then subsequently sold. or it can be, for example, just tracked when you sell it. Another very flexible feature with Advanced compared to smaller systems is units of measure. So businesses that deal in inventory, it's pretty common to have a different purchase unit to a sales unit. For example, buy a box of 100 but sell in each. But often it becomes more complex than that, and you might need the ability to deal with additional units of measure like pallets, cartons, inner cartons and outer cartons, and be able to sell and purchase with any of those units of measure. So you can do that in MYOB Advanced. Each transaction type, sale, purchase, and the base or stock take unit, but then you can create as many additional units as you like with different conversion factors. So you could sell an item in each or base unit as well as pallet and have different pricing to suit. Advanced has stock items and non-stock items. So non-stock items are usually simple things like service charges, freight, that type of thing. Stock items are the items you're tracking inventory for. So every item has its basic details, code, description. It handles a very long description. And in addition to that, you can have cross-reference codes. So you can have scenarios where a particular customer says, I want you to sell to me, but I want you to use my codes on your invoice, not your codes. So you can use that by using the cross-reference codes feature. Cross-reference codes can equally just be used for additional searchable and reportable codes for the same item. Price cost, so the system automatically will track, of course, last average, minimum and maximum cost for each item. You can choose how you value your inventory and record gross margin because the system will support standard, average, FIFO, and specific. Specific relates to lot or serial tracked items. You can have a base price, a recommended retail, and a markup percentage, and that's the first basic level of dealing with sales prices, but there's many, many options besides, which I'll touch on. If you're having multiple warehouses, you can see what's on hand in each warehouse, and then if that item is in multiple locations in that warehouse, drill in and see what locations it's in. Importantly is the ability to have multiple suppliers for the same item. So you can add as many different suppliers as you buy from for each item, and they could be different suppliers for different states or import supplier versus local, each of which can have their own code, unit of measure, lead time, minimum order quantity, minimum order frequency, maximum order, economic order quantity, and it will show their last price that you bought from. In addition to that, you have replenishment. And replenishment is what the system uses to reorder or replenish inventory. You can have different replenishment classes and different seasonality effects as well. So if you're using the min-max method, which is the most common, you can set a safety stock and reorder point and a maximum. And then the system will generate purchase orders where needed in whichever warehouse is needed in order to return the stock back to its maximum, taking into account current stock on hand, current sales orders and purchase orders in the system. You can also have a replenishment rule. For example, if we have items in different warehouses, it's quite common for importers to import stock into a main warehouse and then transport it to their other warehouses. So the main warehouse, if it was Brisbane, could have a replenishment class of purchase, but then the other warehouses could have a replenishment class of transfer. And what that would cause the system to do is, if Melbourne got low on stock, it would automatically generate a transfer order on Brisbane. So replenishment handles transfers as well as purchases. A few other things you can do: upload images, have custom fields or attributes for things like colors and sizes, track weight and volume, and use that for freight purposes. And there's also a WYSIWYG editor to have a very long textual and graphical description that might display on a website or print on a report, for example. So a lot of available features with inventory. There is also kit assembly, so you can set up bill of materials. A bill of material can have stock components as well as non-stock components like labour. And when a bill of material is processed, it's done by a kit assembly, and that will effectively take the stock components out of stock, put the finished good into stock, and deal with the cost of labour or other non-inventory costs in doing that. Sales and purchases, the screens in most systems aren't radically different. Every sale needs a customer and a date and the products you're selling, and the same on the purchasing side. But I'll touch on a few things that work very nicely. So in a sales order, we can create a new order. Firstly, there are a lot of different sales order types, and they will cause different things to happen. So for example, a sales order with allocation will do a hard allocation of the inventory and not allow another order to be prioritised above it, whereas a normal sales order will commit the inventory but not do a hard allocation. So those are quite powerful where needed. We have the products, and each product can bring through automated special pricing and discounting. The bottom of the screen shows what's on hand, and you can easily add multiple other items. So you can add a quantity against multiple items in the one screen and add multiple items to the order at the same time. You can filter and say, show me available items only, or show all. And you can also filter and say, show items that have been sold to that customer in the last, in this case, 90 days. In processing sales, the system obviously manages GST. It can also calculate automatically and allocate commissions to a salesperson. Processing the order, so you can have shipping rules, so different customers can be set to allow or don't allow back order, ship via different couriers. You can automate freight charges going onto the order if need be. And then the options you have from any sales order is when it's supplied, that's called a shipment. So you create a shipment, you can create a tax invoice at the same time or later. Equally, you can create a purchase order from a sales order. So if it's a special order for items you don't normally stock, you can do a back-to-back purchase order. If it relates to items that you don't have on hand in warehouse A, but you want them from warehouse B, you can create a transfer order. You can place items on back order, recalculate prices, and you can implement approvals of sales orders. Also, there is batch processing of just about everything in MYOB Advanced, so be they sales orders, invoices, receipts, transfers. So you can run a daily process or as often as you like. You can do the same with replenishment. So a common scenario is sales are entered throughout the day, and at a particular point, replenishment can be run, which will then automatically generate purchase orders for any items that the business is low of. Purchase is quite similar, and you can see the screens are laid out almost identically. So a purchase obviously is from a supplier or vendor to a particular location or warehouse for the items that are needed, and the steps in receiving a purchase order is to do a purchase order receipt. That's when the inventory comes in, and then an AP bill or an invoice against that. You can do multiple receipts against the same purchase order and multiple AP bills or invoices against the purchase order. And you can also manage landed costs. So for businesses that do importing, landed costs are obviously quite important because they relate to the value of the stock, and it's normally preferred that those costs are costed into the value of the stock and not put straight to the P&L. So in a receipt, you have the ability to add as many or as few landed costs as you like, and that can be customs, overseas freight, local freight, etc. in different currencies. Those can be apportioned across items in the shipment based on various factors: value, cubic or volume, weight, or you can do a specific allocation manually yourself. So that will cause the inventory to be valued at the complete landed cost, taking into account all of those items that normally are invoiced to you by your freight or importing agent. And they'll go through the accounts payable system as a separate invoice to the stock invoice, of course. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to projects. So that's another key area. Projects in advance can be used for a range of things. They can be an internal project where you're capturing costs of a particular activity, building a new building, for example, or implementing software even. Equally, they can relate to a customer and result in revenue and expenses relating to that customer. So projects can be given a start-finish date. They can require approval before they can be activated, and you can choose to restrict employees and equipment relating to that project. Visibility settings relate to the different transaction types that may or may not be allowed to be posted to this project. So you can have certain types of transactions, like a GL journal, not able to go to a project, but commonly they're all available. A project is often broken into tasks, so you can have project ID and then task ID, and any activity that you do relating to that project can be tracked at the task level, including the budget. So the project task is like a little sub-project. It can have its own start-finish date. It can have billing and allocation rules, and it can have the same or different visibility settings to the main project, and it can have a budget. So the budget can be based on unit quantity at a particular rate, or just a budgeted amount, and you can have budget values for any revenue or expense or asset or liability that's going to be a factor on this project. The project balances just shows you anything that's happened from a financial perspective on this project. So at this point, we've incurred actual labour on the project. You can assign multiple employees, and different employees can have different earning types and labour rates. You can assign equipment, and equipment can have cost rates and setup rates, etc. You have activity history, which is exactly the same as what we saw on customers and opportunities, where you can add tasks, events, emails related to the project. You can have different attributes or custom fields that relate to a project, and they can be useful for searching and reporting. And then any invoice you've issued to the customer from this project is going to appear here. So to make that easy, you can also set up project templates. So if you have recurring projects or projects you do a lot of, then you can set up a template for it, and that template can have pre-done all of the normal tasks that you do, and if need be, the normal employee that would do that type of project and equipment. So when you create a new project from a template, it will inherit all of that, and then you can edit it as you need be. So any transaction, purchase, sale, invoice, journal, expense claim, timesheet can relate to a project. So employees can do timesheets on their mobile device or in the application, and they can enter time against projects and or project tasks, or separate from both of those and just record time. And they can put hours for each day of the week, which will roll up to their total hours for the week, etc. Time entries can be billable or not billable, and they can enter notes as a part of doing that. So that will also then go through an approval process if need be. They can submit that, it can be checked, approved. Once it's approved, it'll be released to the project. An employee can also record usage of materials against a project and a project task. So if they need to book parts to a job, then they can do that. Okay, so whatever they're adding, they can, it'll have its own unit of measure and what quantity was used on what particular day. That would also go through the approval process. With communication, the key things that are happening there is you have tasks and events. Tasks are things to do, and events are like appointments. In managing those, any task or event can have a category. The category will color code it, but it doesn't need to say blue, yellow, red or green. It can actually more relate to the type of activity it is. So a project activity versus a debt collection activity versus a marketing activity, for example. They'll go through different statuses. And this is another thing that can be tracked against a project or a project task. So you can track the time spent, billable or not, to do this particular activity, as opposed to doing it through a timesheet. But it all ends up in the same place. Events are like appointments or meetings. All of these, including emails, can be synchronized, with your email system, so particularly Microsoft Office 365 and Exchange. That can be basic synchronization, emails in and out, appointments in and out, tasks in and out, or it can be a more enhanced synchronization where emails in and out, for example, are automatically filed against the account or contact they relate to. So without the user doing anything, if they've sent an email to a customer from Microsoft Outlook, even without having MYOB Advanced open, when they next open it, that email would be sitting here against the customer. So I'll touch on a couple of other things. We have about 5 minutes left to go in the webinar, so thank you for bearing with me. Payroll, I'll touch on quite quickly. It's a developing payroll. It's been released in the product since about March. We have a number of large customers using it. Every employee, of course, will have an employee record in the system. You can track the employees' history of different roles they've had and when they started them and finished them. Employees can have a cost in terms of their salary and or broken down to an hourly rate, and either of those can be used in project time entries. And there's various ways of handling charge-out rates. From a payroll perspective, they will have a standard pay, be they salary or wage, and you can do an online TFN declaration directly to the ATO through the ATO's standard business reporting service. The pay items are very flexible. You can create custom leave types. Some businesses have things like study leave and other types of leave types that are personal to them over and above annual personal long service, and they can accrue in different ways. You can have unlimited allowances, deductions, super salary sacrifice, and you'll just process through that pay run. It's integrated with MYOB Pay Super and any SuperStream compliant clearinghouse, and it will obviously be single touch payroll compliant when that's due next year. One thing I apologise I didn't touch on was pricing, so I might quickly go back to that. We have, this is a common area where small business systems just don't handle the flexibility that businesses need with pricing of product. So Advanced has two key areas for pricing: sales prices and discounts. Sales price can be a base price, or you can set up for a specific customer specific pricing for specific products. That can be promotional based with a start-finish date. It can be quantity based, and you can easily create updates to that using a price worksheet and then make a change to it based on a formula, such as a percentage increase on the original last or average cost plus the markup percentage, or a calculation on the pending price. So that's very flexible. You can also, leaving aside pricing for a specific customer, put customers into groups and manage pricing at the price class level. So this would be an example of a level, price class A. Set up the pricing for that, and then any customer that's set to price class A will get this pricing. From a discounts perspective, you have very granular ability to manage pricing. So you can discount by percent amount or add a free item. in doing that, you can have break quantities or breaks in the discount based on quantity or amount. So this screen allows you to set up the break quantities. These are based on quantities and then how many free items. And then you can nominate what the free item is. So this screen is the items that are subject to that discount. And then this screen is which free item are we adding. So that's one example. So you can do discounts at line level, so particular product level, product on a sales order normally. It can be at document level, so a discount off the whole invoice value rather than a discount off the product. So you can see there's various subsets of that by customer and item, by customer and item price class, or a specific promotion. So it's very flexible, easy to update, can be updated using Excel or in the application. And the advantage of the sales prices and discounting that you can do is that any subsequent quote, sale, invoice you issue to the customers that are assigned to it are automatically going to inherit the correct price. And that can be a huge saving in terms of looking up manual price lists, correcting errors and doing credits because things weren't right, or looking on previous invoices to see what the price was. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of key aspects of MYOB Advanced. There's many, many more. Another thing I'll leave you with is two things that work very well. One is scheduling reports. Any report in MYOB Advanced can be scheduled to be PDF'd and emailed to the people you want it to go to on a particular frequency. The other thing is user security. So it's very powerful, can be maintained at a user level, a role level, a user type level, down to access rights in particular screens. So very powerful, and a full audit trail that can be as extensive as who changed what field on a sales order and what was the value of that field before it was changed and what is it now. So if somebody's changed the quantity or a price in an order or an invoice, you could track all of that. A couple of key points to finish off with. MYOB Advanced has a service and equipment maintenance module, a very extensive feature set coming with those, already been released in the United States and just needs to be accredited and brought through into the Australian version of the product here, and that's due in the first part of next year. And work is already underway to expand the payroll capability to include employee self-service. So that will be things like leave request, accessing pay slips, and updating contact details initially, and will be expanded over time. So if you'd like to see more information about MYOB Advanced, feel free to contact us or myself directly. Have a look at our website and MYOB's website. And there's also a number of YouTube videos about MYOB Advanced. I'll quickly link to this one, which is called the MYOB Advanced Education Center. And you'll see it has a lot of introductory overview type videos, and then down to specific features like sales orders, CRM improvements, Power BI integration. You can also have a look at what the mobile phone app does. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you for attending today. I hope you found it informative, and happy to take any questions or feedback. Otherwise, thanks for attending. Thanks, everybody.